Hello and welcome to another episode of Mole Thoughts, where I give you my first thoughts on freshly released video games. This one is about Warhammer 40K, ChaosGate, Daemonhunters, it's a mouthful, and it is the newest Warhammer 40K game. And well, as a Warhammer 40K fan, I can tell you we had a lot of misses and some hits here and there, but mostly misses. The reality seems to be there's only two extremes when it comes to Warhammer 40k games. It is an absolutely amazing game, or it is an absolute mess. Good news with this game, it is an absolute amazing game. But let's talk about the game first before we are going into the Warhammer 40k lore. What is this game? Well, it is basically a turn-based tactical game, or if you want to draw a comparison with another video game, then it is XCOM. That's literally what it is. Like, it uses 90% of the same mechanics as XCOM does, where you have to go to certain missions. You cannot do all the missions. Then you have to manage like which areas you want to save. There's basically a doomsday clock running if too many planets are getting overrun and stuff like that. So it's very much like XCOM works. The same goes with the units you can take with you. You can have 4 Grey Knights, which are special Space Marines for all the people who don't know Warhammer 40k lore. But you can take 4 Grey Knights with you. They are all different classes, which are specializing on healing, tanking, DPS, range, melee. And then you can also like upgrade them over time, put more talents into the talent points, specialize them even more. And of course, you can get better equipment, better armor, better weapons. And so, yeah, it's very much like XCOM, but I think it does recreate it very faithful, right? And they do a pretty good job to give you this feeling of you have to make some hard decisions sometimes what you want to do. And sometimes, well, you will not make it in time, and that sucks a little bit. But it's certainly something you have to keep in mind. The fights are very much like XCOM yourself. You are trying to position yourself, you are trying to get the drop on the enemy and try to kill as many enemies as possible because they are stronger than you. They would just overwhelm you with force, right? And you have to think about like how want you to position your company, which weapons you want to use, and do you also want to use the environment against the enemy, because you can also do that. So far it's really just XCOM. Now you might say, okay, Mo, yeah, sure, I like me some XCOM game now and then, right? But what does it do differently than just being XCOM meets Warhammer 40k? And the good news, there are differences here. By the way, you can just see me in the background, like fitting out the ship, which is basically your base of operation, and then you are getting upgrades there. You have also like a big research window and all that. So again, a lot more things which just coming directly from XCOM. But what is the big difference? The biggest difference in this game is that all the Grey Knights are having the power of sea. They can basically wield magic. I know that is not what the lore says and all that. I'm just trying to explain this to people who have never really dabbled into the Warhammer 40k lore, right? But it's basically you have sea abilities, and that means you can actually enhance your attacks on the battlefield, or you can use special attacks on the battlefield, which then give you like a better outcome. Like normally you have somebody with a heavy MG, and then you can activate their special C abilities so that their normal single target attacks become like a white cone and hits everything in their way. Or you are just getting a simple enhancement of your next melee attack, which would do 1 extra damage against the enemy. Or something completely different, you can use an area attack which will put bleed on all the enemies in that specific area. So there's a great variety of C abilities your units are getting. I know you might say, okay, so it's just abilities then? Like, what is so special about that? Because there's a caveat. And that caveat you will now see here coming up when you are looking in the middle of the screen. You see that big 0 purple % in the middle of the screen? Yes, this is the caveat. So this is something you have to keep an eye out for. It's a bit like the timer in XCOM, right? When you are starting to have your fight and you have like, yeah, you have 15 rounds till you have to extract. This is not what the game is doing. The game is not forcing you to extract, but there will be a surge of energy when you reach 100%, right? There will be a surge, and that can mean a variety of things. Like, it can bring in enemy reinforcements, and they can just pop up right behind you, which is not great. They can lower your maximum HP for that mission. They can put up like a gas field where you will lose like all your defense abilities, or they can also like mutate some of the enemies on the battlefield to make them stronger and give them special abilities. So there is like a big variety of things which can happen when it reaches 100%. How does it reach 100%? Glad that you asked, because there are two ways to do this. The first is every time, as you can see right here, when you end a round, you are getting like 15% on the clock. Every round, you're just getting 15%. But there is a second way how this increases, and this brings us back to all of your Psi abilities, because every time you use a Psi ability, you're adding another 5% or even more to the clock, to the percentage counter. So yes, you get a damage boost. You might be able to kill multiple enemies at once, right? But that also means you just push the needle on the percentage number into a direction you really don't want this to go. Because, again, those surges which can happen can be absolutely devastating, and you don't really want to have a warp surge happen at all. Right, it will happen, especially in the later missions. You have to calculate with them. You cannot outrun them because the levels become so big that even if you're not getting stopped by an enemy group, it will trigger at some point. So it's something you have to account for. But nonetheless, it can be worth it. Let's say you're using your Psi ability to take somebody out who is really, really strong. Or as I said, you are taking out 4 enemies at once. And you might say, yeah, you know what? Normally it would have taken me 3 or 4 rounds to kill all those 4 enemies. But now it literally just took me 1 attack. Worth it. Right? And speaking of attacks and taking out multiple enemies, I think one of the really cool things in this game, which you don't fully realize at the beginning because the game is not talking too much, is how much you can use the environment to help you or really screw you over. Yes, they are like icons on the map, like as you can see right here, right? If you would shoot the crosshair icon, you would like trigger like an explosion or something like that. Or when you see a sword icon over like a statue, you can kick over the statue and let it fall on your enemy. But you don't even need that. Like, you will have abilities and grenades you can utilize to just change the battlefield, like taking away the cover for your enemies, throw the enemies behind cover or out of cover, or throw them even off the map where they die instantly. Be careful. You can do the same thing to your Grey Knights. The only plus side here is that the Grey Knights do not die. They would just climb up again, but then they might be out of position and they might be vulnerable to attacks. right? So actually changing the battlefield, blasting like holes into walls, taking away defense position or creating even new defense position is something really powerful. You only learn to really appreciate when you have been playing the game for a little bit and you realize what you can do, because it really gives you a huge advantage. So again, from a gameplay perspective, it's pretty simple. It is Warhammer 40K meets XCOM with its own ideas here and there, but 80 to 90% is XCOM. You love XCOM? You will love this game. You hate XCOM with a passion? You will hate this game with a passion. For everyone else, there are multiple difficulties you can play with. I think there are 4 in total, and where you can make it relatively easy, where it's not that punishing, or if you say, nah, I need more punishment, I love punishment, you can also do that in the difficult settings. So if you're not sure if this game might be too punishing for you, don't you worry, difficult settings are there. The only thing I have to add, and that sucks a little bit, you cannot swap the difficulty when you are playing the game. You have to do that before you start a new run. And that sucks a bit, because especially at the beginning, you don't know if this is maybe not too hard for you. And then if you realize, oh, this is too hard, I have to lower it in the difficulty settings, then you have to start a new run, right? But I am already on my second run. Well, I haven't finished the first one because I made too many mistakes and I learned too much in the first run that I just decided for myself that I want to start a second run. And interestingly enough, it didn't take me so long. It took me like maybe an hour to get where I was 4 hours before, right? So it was actually really quick when you like learned all the basics. Now let's talk about the Warhammer 40K perspective here. Or well, we would do that. There are a few things I wanna point out, or specifically one thing I want to point out which I really didn't like, and that is the camera. Like the camera, you can turn the camera around, but you can only turn it into 4 different angles. So it's not a free camera you can just rotate. You have 4 set angles. And man, I already had some moments where the camera was just shit and I couldn't find a good angle to see what the heck is going on. So that is definitely one of the things I have to point out. But everything else so far, yeah, feels absolutely solid, and I really enjoy myself in the gameplay. But now let's talk about the Warhammer 40k lore. Did they nail the lore? Yes! I love the voice actors, I love the characters. They're going really deep with the lore. You can even talk to the characters on the ship, learn a little bit about their story and the Warhammer 40k universe, and you get their opinions on certain events which happened in the past. And it's great. Like from a Warhammer 40k lore perspective, it's amazing. They are also very faithful to the equipment you find, the weapons you find, the enemies you are fighting. They're really also trying to catch, like, you are the Grey Knights. Like, there is this one moment in the game where you land on the planet and you get the information that the Ultramarines are fighting against the word bearers, and they're like, shit, did they saw us? Did they know that we are here? Because we are like a secret super unit. And they were like, nah, nobody saw us. Like, we are just doing the mission and then we are out. We are not working with them together, right? As it is true in the lore, really. And yeah, it's just, they did a fantastic job. There are a few things I have to point out, though. The first thing is, you're playing a Grey Knight in elite Astartes. Like, basically the best of the best, right? And they're getting hurt by rifles. they're getting hurt with knives. It's like, that is so unbelievable. Like, a normal rifle is not hurting in a starters, leaving alone a Grey Knight, especially when you were in a Terminator armor and the enemy is starting to shoot at you with a normal rifle, like not even a heavy rifle, it's really just a normal assault rifle, and you lose like a quarter of your health, and you are like, wait, what? No? Just no? You know? So that is definitely one of the things I noticed immediately and felt a little bit weird. I personally can overlook it, because if you want to be more indestructible and feel like a super force on the battlefield, like a superpower on the battlefield, you can just lower the difficulty if you really want to get the feeling. Of course, I understand for gameplay balance reasons that they have to do that somehow. And it gets a little bit more believable later on when you are starting to fight bigger demons of Nurgle or Chaos Space Marines and all that, right? Like, it becomes so much more believable when you are fighting those big threats of Nurgle. But at the beginning, when you were just fighting some cultists with their assault rifles and whatnot, it's like, what? You were not hurting me. You are not even putting a dent in my armor. Or you shouldn't, but you do. Another thing I have to point out, even though in the first mission you are fighting against Khorne and some of the Khorne demons, the only real enemy in this game is Nurgle. Everything focuses on Nurgle. And I think that's fine for the story they are trying to tell here. But I truly believe that there will be like some DLCs or expansions or whatever where we will then get Khorne, Singe, and Slaanesh, right? Or maybe even some other threats. We have to see about that. But for right now, Nurgle. That's the thing. They have a great variety of units there. So it doesn't feel immediately like repetitive when you fight against the enemies, even though at the beginning it does a little bit. But they have a great variety of different enemies you can find, and I didn't found it too problematic. But yeah, again, like, I think they did a pretty great work on the lore, world design, the discussions you have on your ship, right? And from a Warhammer 40K perspective, they absolutely nailed it. From a gameplay perspective, it's XCOM. It's nothing new. If you like XCOM and you need another similar game in your life, this is it. It plays exactly in what you would expect, and it does that really, really well. And if you're also loving Warhammer 40K, well, jackpot. Like, it works for me. Love XCOM, love Warhammer 40K. Amazing combination, love it. So, those are my thoughts on Warhammer 40K, ChaosGate, Daemonhunters. One last thing I have to mention, Frontier is the publisher of this. They also gave me a copy of the game. But something I still have to mention is Frontier unfortunately uses de novo copyright protection in all of their games, and they're also doing it here. And I would really ask them, stop doing that. It is useless, it mostly hurts the consumer, and it does absolutely nothing for you besides of burning money. Now, how is the performance in this game because of it? Can't tell, it's a turn-based game. Like, it's steady 60 for me, and that's really all I can say about it. But I haven't noticed anything because it's a turn-based game. But with that said, we are at the end of the video. Those were my first thoughts on the game. If you like XCOM, if you like Warhammer 40K, I recommend the game. If you don't like XCOM or turn-based tactical games in general, don't touch it. It's as simple as that. But with that said, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you're on your way out, I would appreciate if you leave a like. If you're new to the channel, you want to see gaming news, reactions to trailers, and gaming announcements. I'm also doing some Warhammer 40K stuff now and then. I would appreciate if you might leave a subscription. It would help me out a great deal. And if you ever want to catch me live, you can do so from Monday to Friday, starting at 9 AM ET, which is 2 PM UK time, and 3 PM Central European time at trovo.live/ChaosMole. And every Friday, we are streaming here on YouTube. Yeah. But with that said, folks, thank you so much for watching. And also, if you want to support me even further than that, quick note, we now have a membership option underneath the video where you can support the channel monetarily and the things I'm doing on here. With that said, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, and may the Emperor protect.